Good everyone. I hope you're having an amazing day. So today we're going to talk about configuring Visual Studio code to work with Salesforce environment. So as a Salesforce developer, right? If you are a Salesforce developer, you might be often used to working with Dev Console. So Dev Console is a great place to write code, to write Visual Force page, Lightning component, write Apex triggers, write SQL queries, right? A lot of stuff you can do, right? Fantastic place. But at times, what happens is, right? It might hit a snag. It might hit a limitation, right? Where you find it extremely painful to work with it. What I meant by painful in the sense, right? For instance, I'm telling from our experience. So we have this customer work. I'm not going to go into very detail because I can't give you any more information, but I just give you the context, right? So we work with the customer org, developer sandbox org. I mean, so we do customization, integration kind of stuff, right? So what happens that recently we encounter a problem where Dev Console becomes extremely, uncomfortable to work with. When I meant by uncomfortable, what I meant by is that it's painfully slower. It started giving exception that no response from a server and blah blah kind of stuff, right? So multiple developers working on it. It turns out to be a nightmare operation, right? So it was not pleasant. So that's where the Visual Studio code comes very handy. Visual Studio Code, let me give a little bit of background Visual Studio Code before I dive into configuring stuff for Salesforce. Right, so Visual Studio Code is an open source, right? It's free. It's a free IDE. And you can install it on a Windows, Macintosh, or your Linux distribution. Could be Ubuntu or whatever, right? So it's similar to Visual Studio Code, but Visual Studio. Visual Studio is a great platform. It does .NET Core. You can do a lot of stuff with Visual Studio, right? If you're someone who has C# experience, who work Visual Studio, you will find Visual Studio Code very, easy to use, and it's pretty much similar, right? Except a few limitations. I'm not going to go into the limitation of Visual Studio Code with respect to Visual Studio. That's a topic for a different video because it's going to take ages to talk about it, right? Right. So what we're going to do, we're going to install Visual Studio Code, right? And it's very easy to install. So you go to code.visualstudio.com. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put the link below in the description in a sequential order so that you can follow one step at a time, right? So the first thing first, right? You need to install the Visual Studio Code. So as I mentioned, code.visualstudio.com, download, and go to this page. And I presume you're using Windows. It doesn't matter if you're not. You can use Macintosh. You can use Ubuntu. So I'm using Windows, so I'm going to stick to Windows. So go to Windows, and we'll download installer, and then open installer, click next, and we'll install Visual Studio Code. Nice and easy, right? Fantastic. Next thing, you need to worry about installing JDK, right? So Java Development Kit. It's very important. So install JDK version 11. So I'll put the link below again. So you're going to install this Windows 64 installer. So install that. Once that's done, okay, nice and easy. You're going to have to install Salesforce CLI, right? So Salesforce CLI is extremely important to install. So go to this page, and don't worry about remembering the name. I'll put the link below as usual. So if you are someone who's using Mac, follow the instruction of Mac, right? But since we are sticking to Windows, so we're going to install the CLI in Windows. So it will install a download. It will download an installer. Once the installer is downloaded, open the installer and click next. It will install the CLI. Nice and easy. But please save the location where you're installing the CLI. It's very important. I'll tell you why in a minute. Right? Let's say you are installing at C program file Salesforce CLI. Please save that location and write it down in a Notepad or Notepad++, wherever. Right? Now, once that's done, you have to install the Salesforce extension pack, right? So Salesforce extension pack, it's very nice, it's very handy, so it's important to install it. So go to this page. As usual, I'll put the link in the description below. So click on install. When you click on install, it will open Visual Studio Code, right? So it will take you to this page, right? And it will take you something this, and then there will be an install button. Click on install. Once you install, you will see this option, disable and uninstall, right? Right, now, you might find a bit of difference here. You might find, let me close this one. You might think, why is the type, the bar is on the right hand side instead of left, right? That's because I've changed the setting, right? So you can go to view, so appearance, and so when you open the Visual Studio Code for the first time after install, this is how it looks like, pretty much, right? So I wanted to give a similar experience like Visual Studio, where we have projects on the right hand side. So that's why I moved to the right hand side. So to go to view, appearance, and move side by right? So that's all I did, right? So once you install the extension, right, you might want to install 2 more extensions. I'll tell you what. So go here. This is an extension. So I'm going to type Salesforce, right? And just type document. So this one, Salesforce Documenter, right? I like this one. If you're interested, you can install it. It's not mandatory. So Salesforce Documenter. So it will help with the documentation. You can go through it, the options here, right? And then I've installed Salesforce Reference as well. So Salesforce Reference extension for VS Code if you are after Salesforce developer documentation. Another thing I will encourage you to install is Salesforce code differentiator. If you wanted to local files which is compiled on Salesforce, you can install either of them, right? But it's good to have it. So, right. Choice is yours, whichever you wanted to install. Because you might want to compare your local files with the file store in the Salesforce cloud, right? Okay, so that's done. Now we need to change a few settings here, right? So I'll tell you what settings. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna click here back, and we'll hide that option. Go to this gear icon and go to settings here, right? And type Apex, right? So now look for this option, Salesforce VS Code Apex Java, right? When you type it, it will give you, so you need to put this path here, C program file, JDK, the place where the JDK is installed, right? I'll show you mine. So it probably get installed something like this, right? So you need to put this root path. That's all you need to do, right? This is very important step. Please don't miss it out. Okay, and then you can look at the documenter option, so enable on save. So what happens is that when you save a file, right, it will automatically put a documentation kind of stuff at the root of the file, header of the file, right? So it's up to you if you wanted to do that. So you can have a look at Apex, right? So that's the main option, right, which I'm after. Please do not forget to check that off. And there is one more option. I presume you might need it. So let's look at it. So I'll show you my option, my setting, right? Just to give you a... So what you can do, when you open this, right, you can go to extension here, right? So I'll walk you through option each one, what I have. So you have Salesforce Apex, right? So I have Salesforce debug configuration. So you can change the timeout if you want, right? If you wanted to increase the timeout, you can increase, right? And this is a documenter configuration. So in the date format, you can change the date format. Enable for Apex, right? This you can do that. Enable for Lightning JavaScript. We are not doing anything with JavaScript, but if you're doing Lightning, so you can enable for Visual Force. If you don't want, you can turn it off, right? Include. So these are the options. You can read about it. So I mean, I'm not worried about this one, right? Salesforce preview features. So it's up to you if you wanted to do any of this one. So only Apex library for this is the only one I ticked, right? Retrieve test code coverage, specify. This one I ticked it because I'm interested to see the code coverage, right? And specify with a status message. So this I prefer you to tick it if it's not. And telemetry, I'm not much concerned, right? Salesforce Lightning, and remember device, right? Salesforce Visual Force configuration, right? So you can do Visual Force configuration as well. These all things I haven't ticked it. It came by default. So just to give you context, I'm showing you this option. SaaS, I'm not concerned, right? So, right, forget about it, right? So we don't have to worry about TypeScript and all stuff, right? So most of the options by default will be good enough, right? But if not, for whatever reason, if it pops out an error message, right, you can always Google it, right? So as I mentioned, Apex Java one, right? That's very important, right? So this is very important. So don't forget to put the option here. Okay, so that's done. Now let's connect to a project. So now project, I just wanted to talk a bit about the project here with you guys, right? And so as I talked about the project, right? So project is a bit interesting in the sense. Hang on. Sorry. So what we're gonna do when you talk about the project, right? The project part, you can connect to your sandbox, or you can connect to your production environment. But in my case, I'm not using sandbox because, as I said, it's a free org, right? So it's always a production environment when you're signing up for a free org. So if you are connecting to customer, that will be a sandbox, right? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna connect to an org and fetch the data from an org, right? Just to give you context. All right, so what we're gonna do, so look at the option here on the screen, show all commands, so Control-Shift-P. Okay, Control-Shift-P. So you're interested in SFDX, so just look for a create project with manifest, right? And we'll ask you for a standard empty, so use standard project name. You can use the project name as whatever you want. So let's say a brew-based project, right? So I'm gonna put it as okay, just gonna go here, right? I'm gonna do new brew-based proj, create proj. So I will run for CLI, right? So it says that it's kind of connected. So it connected in the sense that I created a project behind the scene with a basic metadata. I mean, and ready to be pushed to, ready to be connected to an org, right? Now, you'll get this message. For now, ignore it because we haven't connected this Visual Studio Code to any of the orgs, so it doesn't make sense, right? So to enable the S object, right? Because where you're pointing this Visual Studio Code at first place, right? S objects from where, right? Which org? We haven't even mentioned anything about the org. So next thing is to connect to org. So very straightforward process. Control-Shift-P again. There's an option called SFDX authorize an org. Check this one. So you got this option here, right? Production, sandbox, and custom. So I'm interested in production now because it's a free org. So in your case, if you're using customer sandbox, it will be test.salesforce.com, right? So production org. So you name it, give a nice name. So whatever, it makes sense to you. Brew-based org, right? Because mine free org is based on a brewery, so that's why I give brew-based org, So it will connect. So it will take you to a login page, right? Now, what happens is that, right? Now, you might, if you do this, right, you might get a problem. One time, for whatever reason, it will not take you to this page. It will say localhost not found or whatever not found, right? So you know what you have to do in that case. You remember I told you about please save your CLI path somewhere, right? That's where the CLI path comes in. So what do? Search for environment variable, edit the system environment variable. Not this one. Wait a second. Right, it will take you to this page, right? Look for one path, right? And then edit, and then add this C program file bin, right? So it will actually take you to this page. So please don't forget to put in the bin, right? So till bin. Okay, so for whatever reason, if when you do authorize an org, it gives an error. So this is one of the reasons why. It could be this reason, because I had the issue, so once I put that, it worked for me, right? So now let me log into the org, Wilson. I know sometimes configuring this can be painful, but once you get it going, it's very easy to use, right? Trust me, it's amazing. Right, so it works fine. It's working fine, right? So it's connected, nice and easy. So I'll go back here. So you see, it successfully ran, right? Fantastic. Now we need to fetch the data, right? Fetch the data. Let's say we need to fetch a couple of classes, Apex classes, right? So what we're gonna do? We're gonna go to the org browser here, right? So it actually connects to your Salesforce org and gives you the the real time data here. So what are you going to do? There's an option here. So before you do that, I just wanted to show you one thing. So you go here, right? So everything stores under Force app. So you have your classes, Apex triggers, everything, right? Classes is empty. You got nothing here, right? So let me get the classes from the org. So org browser here, right? So you go to Apex classes here, and you can do retrieve source from org, right? It takes some time, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending upon the classes if you have, thousands of it, then it might take time. So that's done here. Now, I might say, let's say, let me get an Apex test suite if I have some. I may or may not have. So it will get a message that successfully ran, right? If for whatever reason you get an error message, you need to troubleshoot, right? So you got a message here, right, at the bottom. Okay, so similarly, you can push all the stuff you want. You wanted to push the permission sets, you can do that. Just use this cloud icon here. Okay, now let's go back here, and you see the classes here. So classes, when you go to developer org, right? So you can see. Let me go to the dev console here, and let me look at any class here, right? So you can't see a metadata of the class, right? So to see that, in this case, right, you can see that this is your actual class, right, account controller, and this is the class, the metadata of this, right? So this is how when you create a class, this is how the two things get created. Now, it's very easy to you can view multiple classes at a time. So you can drag this and put it next here, right? You can see that. Let me give you one very simple example here. Let me go to schedule account. Let's say I wanted to see the definition of this batch account. You can do that. So you can actually do control and click, right? It will take you to the batch account class, right? Nice and easy. Or if you do not want that, so what you can do, you can go to the schedule class again, right? And then right click, right? And then you go to peak definition. Voila, you can see, this is exactly the similar kind of experience you get in Visual Studio, right? This is exactly what I love Visual Studio very much, right? So in a dev console, right? I mean, if I wanted to view this stuff, I can't do this here, right? It won't take me anywhere. I mean, unless, right click, right, I select here, right click. I can't go anywhere unless, there's, I don't know if there is any, if you guys know any way where we can do that, when I click here, it takes you somewhere else. If you guys know, please do let me know about it. But here, right, it's nice and easy. You can modify a code change, and once you do a code change, right, so let's say you did a code change, right. Let me give an example, right. Okay, I did add an extra space, right. Now I wanted to do a code comparison, right. It's very easy. So you can right click here, and you can see SFDX file against the org. It will take a minute, so you see it will give you a difference. So a little bit here, or let's say it's not properly done. So let's say let me add a code here. Let me add a text. This is a test code, right? Let me save it, and you can right click on this file, right, and then you see difference file against the org. right? You see, this is why I said you need to have a source, comparator installed, otherwise it will complain, right? So this is one of, and now you can push the code to an org, right? Okay, let me go back to this org here, right? I just want to demonstrate one thing. Let me look for this one. What's the name of this? This one, bad. No. Let me take this. And I wanted to demonstrate. Let me push the code back to org to see how it looks like. But before that, I wanted to see the old version of the source code. Right? See, we do not have any header here, right? This is a test, right? So what I'm going to do, I close this one, and I'm going to push this to an org. So I'm going to right click here and I say deploy this source to an org. So it's doing something here. It's going to take a little bit. Right, it's deployed. It ran successfully, right? Fantastic. Now let's go back to org again. Edit, search in file, and let's look at it again. Here you go. It's deployed, right? So this is why it's very handy. And if you think that, let's say I wanted to do the other way around, like let's say someone fiddled here and added a command. This is a test. This is a batch code, right? And I saved it here. Let's see if it saves first of all. Let's say Apex class. Oh, okay. All right. So we can't do this here. Okay. Doesn't matter. Okay. So what I'm gonna do? Let me save this one. And okay, let me look at this one, strategy pattern, right? Go to here and let's see if we have anything called strategy pattern here. It must be there somewhere, right? Strategy. Okay, so I'm gonna add the header from the org here, right? So let's say I'm gonna add it here. Okay, this is a design pattern class. So if you're interested in design pattern, right, there's a video I covered about strategy pattern, factory, and facade. Please check it out if you're interested. I'll put a link if you're interested, right? I'll put a link to my playlist. So I've only covered 3 for now. So if you're interested, right? Okay, cool. All right. So now what we're gonna do? So I wanted to get the latest code to my a local directory, right? So I'm gonna do the same path here and close it here, right? Go to browser, org browser, right? And I'm gonna refresh the component, right? Because I wanted to get the latest, right? So you please make sure that you refresh it and retrieve the source. Always refresh it, right? Overroot. This could be a problem if you are in the middle of doing some changes. Please make sure that do not refresh the entire code, right? Or if you are, otherwise you will override it, right? So I don't want this one, right? I just want, the reason why I demonstrated this just to give you an idea, right? If you are used to source control, you know what I'm talking about. So, okay, so what we're gonna do, sorry, I did the wrong thing, right? Apex class here. I refreshed it. And I'm gonna go to this boy here of I'm interested only in strategy pattern, right? So I'm gonna download the strategy here. You want to override, right? Yeah, I want it to override because I'm not interested in okay, so what we're gonna do, you go here and go to classes here, and you're gonna go to the strategy pattern here. Here you go. This is design pattern, right? Right. This is one thing. You can also do test. I'm not sure if I have a test class here. So let me see if I got any test class first of all. Test suite. If I have any test, contact trigger test. Right. Okay. Seems like there is something here. Okay, so we have this something called contact trigger test, right? Now you can run a test from here, right? This is very handy. From the screen, there's something called run all test, or you can run individual test if you want, right? Or there is a something called here. This it's like cylinder like sign. You can click on here. if you do not have any tests found, okay, that's fine. If you do not have a test suite, then probably it will complain. So, okay, so this is what I normally prefer to do. So you can run it from here, and you can run all tests from here, right? This is very nice and easy option. Or you can run it from here as well, right? So this is one of the options you have. And another thing, if you wanted to run SQL queries, you can do that as well. So if you want to install a extension, you can do that. I use an extension, but if you don't, then you can always do something like this, Control-Shift-P, and you can see SFDX, SQL, right? You can do execute a SQL query. So you can do select ID from, just give an account, limit to, right? REST API, so it might take a time, but this is the, you see, you got these two IDs here, right? But I don't find it very comfortable. I wanted to view here in the editor, so I've installed a extension, right? So if you want, you can install it. So something called SQL, where is it? So SQL, Salesforce CLI editor, right? I installed this one. I mean, I pretty much like it, so it's very handy. So let me run that for you. So we're gonna do control extension here. Okay, so let me open the code at the same time. Just do Control-Shift-P. It will see if you do SQL, right? SQL editor. It will take a while, right? So just a second. Sometimes extension takes. Okay, error. It happened an error for whatever reason. Okay, all right. Okay, I'll have to fix it. So I think there's an issue. So don't worry about it for now. So yeah, so you can use that extension SQL editor, right? To run the SQL. So you can do pretty much everything with this, right? Or you can also look for another extension if you want. It must be there. There'll, you know, there are a lot of them, right? There's what's the right, so that's pretty much, I wanted to talk about how to use Visual Studio Code, right? You can do a lot of things, right? I mean, I wish we had more time, but you know, that's all I wanted to talk about today. So I hope you find some value out of it. If you are someone who wanted to use Eclipse, I'm not sure about the Eclipse support because I haven't seen Salesforce talking about Eclipse plugin anymore. And the website where you can get a plugin is pretty old. So I've used Eclipse and it's extremely slow, right? I mean, Salesforce is investing in Visual Studio Code integration very well. So I presume this is the best tool to use. It's my opinion. I mean, if you don't like it, that's fine. You can stick to Dev. I'm not sure about Sublime Text, but if you are interested to use Sublime Text, you might as well. But yeah. That's all I wanted to talk about today, guys. Thank you very much for your time. Greetings and adios from New Zealand. Bye-bye.